What if the biggest problem facing Shedeur Sanders right now isn't his arm, his decision-making, or the speed of the NFL game, but the five guys supposed to be protecting him? That question has been blowing up across football circles, and once you see the tape, it's hard to unsee it. Ever since Shedeur was named the starter, something strange has followed him onto the field. Pressure arrives instantly. Defenders come through untouched. Plays break down before they even have a chance to develop. At first, critics tried to pin it on the rookie quarterback learning on the fly. But as more analysts, former players, and fans slowed the footage down, the conversation shifted fast. The spotlight moved away from Shedeur and landed squarely on the asterisk Cleveland Browns offensive line. This isn't about one bad snap or a missed assignment. Fans are pointing to a growing collection of moments where protection looks confused, late, or flat-out non-existent. Clips started circulating online showing linemen blocking air, defenders sprinting through open lanes, and Shedeur bracing for contact almost immediately after the snap. That's when whispers started turning into loud debates. Is this just poor execution, or is something deeper going on? Former quarterbacks have weighed in, breaking down plays and calling out protection issues that simply shouldn't happen at this level. Meanwhile, social media has done what it always does: connect dots, replay moments, and ask uncomfortable questions. Some believe this is just an offensive line in disarray. Others claim the effort itself doesn't look right. To be clear, there's no confirmed wrongdoing, but the optics have fans uneasy. And here's the part that really fuels the fire. Despite what the tape shows, certain members of the offensive line continue to receive praise publicly. That disconnect has only added gasoline to the conversation. Because if this is just bad football, it needs fixing fast. But if it's something else, then what's happening around Shedeur Sanders might be far bigger than anyone expected. The moment everything shifted wasn't loud. There was no press conference meltdown or headline-grabbing quote. It happened quietly, the second Shedeur Sanders was officially named the starter. From that point on, the entire energy around the offense, and especially the protection, felt different. Before Shedeur stepped into that role full-time, the struggles of the Cleveland Browns offense were brushed off as inconsistency, injuries, or scheme issues. But once the rookie quarterback took over, the margin for error disappeared instantly. Pressure started showing up earlier than expected. Play designs that should have had time to breathe collapsed almost on arrival. And week after week, the same troubling visuals kept repeating themselves. What stood out most wasn't just that Shedeur was getting hit, it was how it was happening. Defenders weren't winning long battles or beating blocks late in the down. They were coming free immediately. Clean lanes, no resistance, no hesitation. That's when fans started rewinding plays, slowing them down, and asking questions that couldn't be ignored. Analysts breaking down the tape noticed it too. The timing of the pressure didn't line up with typical rookie mistakes. Even on plays where Shedeur made the correct read, the pocket was already collapsing. That's not a quarterback issue, that's structural. And once that realization set in, the narrative around his early starts began to change. The criticism that had been aimed at Shedeur slowly shifted toward the offensive line. Missed assignments, linemen looking unsure of who to pick up, stunts not being passed off cleanly. These weren't exotic defensive looks either. They were standard NFL pressures that veteran units are expected to handle. What made this moment so pivotal is that it wasn't isolated to one matchup or one opponent. The same problems showed up across multiple games, different defensive fronts, same result. That consistency is what triggered the alarm bells. And here, where things got uncomfortable, as the tape piled up, it became harder to explain these breakdowns as coincidence. Fans started comparing early game drives to late game ones. Some noticed effort levels that seemed to dip at critical moments. Again, nothing proven, but enough to spark serious debate. Because once a young quarterback loses trust in his protection, everything changes. Footwork speeds up, eyes drop, confidence gets tested. That's why this moment mattered so much. It wasn't just the start of Shedeur Sanders' run as QB1. It was the point where people began wondering whether he was being put in position to succeed at all. And once that question entered the conversation, there was no turning back. It didn't take long before the conversation moved beyond fans on social media. Once the All-22 film became available, analysts and former players started speaking up, and that's when things really shifted. Because when people who have played the position start questioning what they're seeing, it carries a different kind of weight. Former NFL quarterback Chase Daniel was one of the first to slow things down and point out what wasn't adding up. Instead of focusing on missed reads or rookie mistakes from Shedeur Sanders, the attention stayed on the pocket itself, or more accurately, the lack of one. On multiple snaps, the protection was already compromised before Shedeur could even hit the top of his drop. What stood out in these breakdowns was the consistency. Analysts weren't talking about elite edge rushers winning one-on-one battles. They were highlighting confusion, linemen hesitating, two blockers drifting toward the same defender while another came through untouched. These are the kinds of errors that coaches drill out at the high school and college level, yet they kept showing up on Sundays. That's where the tone changed. Instead of asking whether Shedeur was holding the ball too long, analysts started asking whether the offense was giving him a fair chance at all. On several plays, the timing of the pressure made it clear the play was dead on arrival. No quarterback, rookie or veteran, is expected to survive that consistently. What made these critiques even more notable was how measured they were. Nobody accused the Cleveland Browns' offensive line of intentional wrongdoing. The language stayed careful. Phrases like miscommunication, poor execution, and breakdowns in responsibility were used repeatedly. But even with that caution, the underlying message was hard to miss. This wasn't normal. And the more analysts talked, the more clips surfaced backing it up. Different games, different opponents, same protection failures. That's when the question stopped being what's going wrong and became why hasn't it been fixed? Because by this point in the season, teams usually show improvement. Adjustments get made, schemes get simplified. Yet the Browns' protection issues seemed frozen in place. That stagnation raised eyebrows across the league. And just when it felt like the narrative couldn't get any louder, fans started matching analyst commentary with specific plays. Freeze frames, side-by-side comparisons, moments where effort, or at least awareness, looked questionable. Nothing proven, no official claims. But once analysts start asking questions out loud, those questions don't just disappear. They linger. And they set the stage for the clips that would push this conversation into overdrive next. This is where the conversation stopped being theoretical and became impossible to dismiss. Because once fans stopped listening to commentary and started watching the tape for themselves, certain plays stood out in ways that felt unsettling. Not controversial, not debatable, just confusing. Clips began circulating online showing moments where Shedeur Sanders barely had time to react before pressure was already in his face. On some snaps, defenders weren't fighting through blocks or winning with speed moves. They were running straight through open gaps, untouched, unbothered, almost invited in. One screenshot in particular went viral. A still frame taken just seconds after the snap showed multiple defenders closing in, while members of the offensive line appeared disengaged or locked onto the wrong assignments. Fans froze the frame and asked the same question over and over. Who is being blocked here? It wasn't a case of a lineman getting beat. It looked like no one was accounted for at all. As more clips surfaced, patterns started forming. Linemen stepping laterally instead of engaging forward. Two blockers drifting toward the same defender while another rushed free. On a few plays, the only person visibly moving toward Shedeur was his own offensive lineman, an image that fueled endless debate online. Some viewers chalked it up to busted schemes or missed calls. Others weren't so sure. Names started getting pulled into the discussion, especially veterans like Jack Conklin and Joel Bitonio, though it's important to be clear here. There is no proof of intent. What fans focused on was repetition. The same players appearing in the same types of breakdowns across multiple games. And then came the fourth down plays, short yardage situations where protection should be at its cleanest. Instead, these snaps produced some of the most jarring visuals: free rushers, whiffed blocks, and immediate chaos in the backfield. On one attempt near the red zone, multiple defenders broke through simultaneously, making the play dead before it even had a chance to develop. For many fans, that was the turning point, because mistakes happen, bad games happen, but when the same issues show up in the most critical moments, questions naturally follow. Social media didn't accuse, it speculated. Loudly, carefully, constantly. Is this just poor communication, a coaching failure, or something else entirely? No one outside the building knows for sure. But when the tape looks like this, fans don't need conspiracy theories to feel uneasy. And just when it seemed like the evidence couldn't pile up any higher, the response from inside the building only made the disconnect feel wider. If there was one moment that pushed this entire situation from frustration into full-blown controversy, it was a single fourth down play, short yardage, high leverage, the kind of moment where execution matters more than anything else. And somehow, it turned into one of the most dissected snaps of the season. The setup itself wasn't complicated. Fourth and short, a fence near scoring range, everything designed to be quick and decisive. This is where offensive lines are supposed to thrive. Simple assignments, clear responsibilities, protect the quarterback long enough for the play to work. Instead, what happened next left fans stunned. As soon as the ball was snapped, the protection unraveled almost instantly. One lineman appeared to move early, creating confusion before the play even developed. Another lunged forward and completely missed his assignment. Within a split second, defenders were already in the backfield. Not one, not two, multiple bodies breaking through untouched. For Shedeur Sanders, the play was over before it began. There was no pocket to step into, no chance to extend the play, just immediate pressure and nowhere to go. That alone would be bad enough. But when fans rewound the clip, the details made it worse. Slow-motion replays showed linemen blocking empty space. Others locked onto the wrong defender while a free rusher sprinted straight toward the quarterback. Veteran players like Jack Conklin and Joel Bitonio were quickly pulled into the discussion, not because of one mistake, but because similar issues had appeared earlier on film. Again, no accusations, just uncomfortable patterns. What really fueled the outrage was the context. This wasn't third and long chaos. This wasn't a busted trick play. This was a moment where the offense needed 1 yard and the protection failed across the board. For many fans, that's when the narrative shifted from bad line play to something seriously wrong. Analysts reviewing the snap pointed out that even basic communication seemed absent. No clean handoff on stunts, no coordinated movement, no recovery once things broke down. And at the NFL level, especially with experienced linemen, that's almost unheard of. The reaction online was immediate, clips spread fast, freeze frames went viral, comment sections exploded with questions. Some blamed coaching, others blamed chemistry. A few went further, suggesting internal issues, but those claims remain unverified and speculative. Still, one thing became clear after that fourth down play. This wasn't just about losing a possession. It symbolized everything fans feared was happening. And once that moment entered the conversation, the scrutiny only intensified from there. Just when fans thought the focus would finally shift toward fixing the problems on the field, something unexpected poured fuel on the fire. Public praise. And not just generic coach speak, but glowing comments that felt completely disconnected from what viewers had just watched on tape. During media availability, members of the coaching staff spoke highly of the offensive line's effort, singling out veteran leaders and emphasizing toughness, professionalism, and consistency. One name that came up repeatedly was Joel Bitonio, described as a stabilizing force and a model of reliability. On the surface, that praise made sense. Bitonio is respected around the league and has built a strong reputation over the years. But that's exactly why the reaction online was so intense. Fans immediately went back to the film, the same film showing blown assignments, missed blocks, critical breakdowns in high-leverage moments, and suddenly the disconnect became impossible to ignore. How could the tape look this chaotic? Yet the messaging sounds so confident. That question echoed across social media, podcasts, and comment sections. To be clear, no one was denying past accomplishments or leadership qualities. What frustrated fans was the timing. This praise came after games where Shedeur Sanders was under siege, hit early and often, and forced to operate in collapsing pockets. For many viewers, it felt like accountability was being redirected or avoided entirely. That's when speculation really took off. Some fans wondered if the coaching staff was protecting veterans publicly while placing the burden quietly on the rookie quarterback. Others suggested the praise was an attempt to calm the locker room amid growing criticism. None of this is confirmed, but the optics alone raised eyebrows. What made matters worse was the history. In previous interviews and soundbites, certain offensive players had reportedly expressed frustration with quarterback play in general. Those old comments resurfaced fast, reframed through the lens of current struggles. Again, no proof of motive, but enough context to make fans uneasy. And this wasn't just about one player. The praise seemed to cover the unit as a whole, despite repeated evidence of communication breakdowns, missed stunts, late reactions, zero adjustments showing up week to week. That's why the messaging landed so poorly. Because when fans feel like they're being told one story while watching another unfold in real time, trust erodes quickly. And once that happens, every quote gets scrutinized, every compliment questioned, and every mistake amplified. At that point, the debate stopped being about technique or scheme. It became about honesty, accountability, and whether the reality inside the building matched what everyone else was seeing on Sundays. And once that doubt takes hold, it doesn't stay quiet for long. This is where everything needs to be handled carefully, because facts end and speculation begins. There is no confirmed investigation, no official accusation, and no proof of intentional wrongdoing by anyone inside the building. But that hasn't stopped the conversation from growing louder, especially online. As the clips piled up and the praise versus tape disconnect became more obvious, fans started filling in the gaps themselves. Rumors began circulating that there might be internal tension surrounding Shedeur Sanders, not just about performance, but about identity, direction, and control of the offense. Some reports and fan theories claim there's resistance to how quickly Shedeur was handed the keys. Others suggest lingering frustration from veterans who may feel the offense is being reshaped around a rookie before it's earned. Again, these are claims and speculation, not facts. What fueled these rumors wasn't one quote or one play, it was the pattern. The repeated breakdowns, the lack of visible adjustment, the public praise that didn't align with on-field results, and the uncomfortable reality that Shedeur, despite showing toughness and flashes of playmaking, seemed to be absorbing the consequences of everyone else's mistakes. Online, fans began asking sharper questions. Why do protection issues look worse in key moments? Why do certain linemen appear confused snap after snap? Why does the offense seem out of sync specifically when Shedeur is under center? None of these questions prove intent, but they do explain why trust started eroding. Some fans went further, speculating that Shedeur's name, attention, and spotlight were being used to prop up an offense that wasn't fully committed to supporting him. That idea spread fast, especially among supporters who believe he's being set up to fail rather than developed properly. Once that narrative takes hold, every missed block feels louder, every hit feels heavier. Others pushed back, arguing that this is simply a struggling unit dealing with injuries, scheme confusion, and pressure of expectations. And that argument has merit. NFL offenses fall apart all the time without conspiracies attached. But even those defending the team admitted one thing: the optics are bad. What makes this situation so volatile is that speculation thrives in silence. And so far, there hasn't been a clear, transparent explanation from the Cleveland Browns that puts the concerns to rest. No acknowledgement of systemic issues, no visible accountability shift, just business as usual. And when fans feel ignored, they speculate louder. Right now, everything surrounding this situation exists in a gray area. Rumors suggest tension, clips suggest dysfunction, but facts remain limited. What's undeniable, though, is that the conversation has moved beyond football mechanics. Because once people start questioning why something looks broken, not just how the pressure doesn't fade, it multiplies. When conversations reach this point, the focus naturally shifts away from what's happening now and toward what comes next. Because for a young quarterback like Shedeur Sanders, situations like this can shape an entire career, sometimes in ways fans don't realize until it's too late. The NFL is unforgiving, especially for rookies. Development isn't just about arm talent or football IQ. It's about trust in protection, trust in play design, trust that when the ball is snapped, the people around you are executing their jobs. And when that trust starts cracking, everything else speeds up. Footwork gets rushed. Reads get cut short. Even confident quarterbacks start playing defensive football in their own minds. What makes this moment critical is that Shedeur has already shown flashes that suggest he belongs. Tough throws under pressure, willingness to stand in the pocket and take hits, leadership that hasn't wavered despite the chaos around him. But repeated breakdowns don't just affect box scores, they affect habits. And bad habits formed early are notoriously hard to break. Fans are already asking the uncomfortable question: how long can a quarterback develop properly when he's constantly bracing for impact? History is full of talented passers whose growth stalled not because they couldn't play, but because their environment failed them. Confidence erodes quietly. Mechanics change subtly. And before anyone notices, a promising trajectory starts bending the wrong way. There's also the mental side. Every hit adds up. Every free rusher leaves a mark, not just physically but psychologically. Quarterbacks begin anticipating pressure that may not even be there. They abandon clean pockets too early. They stop trusting progressions. None of that shows up on highlight reels, but it shows up on film. For the Cleveland Browns, this is where urgency should kick in. Because whether the issues stem from coaching, communication, chemistry, or simple execution, the solution can't wait. The longer this continues, the harder it becomes to separate Shedeur's true ceiling from the damage done along the way. Some fans believe this stretch will ultimately define him as resilient, battle-tested by fire. Others worry it could label him unfairly, turning team failures into quarterback narratives. That's how the league works. Context fades, results remain. And that's why this moment matters so much. Not because of rumors or speculation, but because young quarterbacks don't get unlimited chances. Windows close fast. And if the situation around Shedeur doesn't stabilize soon, the conversation won't just be about blown blocks anymore. It'll be about whether his future was compromised before it ever had a fair chance to fully unfold. At the end of all this tape, all the breakdowns, and all the noise online, one uncomfortable truth remains. Nobody outside the building knows exactly why this looks the way it does. But pretending nothing is wrong is no longer an option. When you line everything up, the repeated protection failures, the lack of visible adjustment, the praise that clashes with what fans see on Sundays, it creates a picture that's hard to explain away as bad luck. Not impossible, not proven, but hard to ignore. And in the NFL, perception matters almost as much as reality. For Shedeur Sanders, this moment is bigger than stats or wins. It's about whether the environment around him allows growth or quietly limits it. Quarterbacks don't develop in isolation. They develop inside systems, inside locker rooms, inside trust. And when that trust feels shaky, even from the outside looking in, it raises real concerns about trajectory. For the Cleveland Browns, the stakes are just as high. This isn't only about protecting a rookie quarterback. It's about credibility, accountability, and whether the organization is willing to confront uncomfortable film instead of talking past it. Fans don't expect perfection. They expect honesty. They expect visible effort to fix what's broken. Right now, there are three possible explanations, and none of them are comforting. One, this is simply an offensive line that's regressed badly and hasn't been coached up properly. Two, communication and chemistry issues are being underestimated and mishandled. Or three, there are internal dynamics at play that haven't surfaced publicly yet. Only one of those paths ends cleanly, and it requires action, not silence. What makes this situation linger is that it doesn't fade after one bad game. Every new clip adds context. Every hit on Shedeur adds urgency. Every week without adjustment makes the conversation louder. And once fans start asking why instead of what, the narrative takes on a life of its own. None of this is a verdict, it's a warning sign. Because if the protection suddenly improves, this entire conversation dies quietly. But if it doesn't, if the same issues keep showing up, the questions won't stop at social media or YouTube breakdowns. They'll reach front offices, league circles, and national narratives that are far harder to control. And that's the part worth thinking about. Not whether this was intentional, not whether rumors are true, but whether the people in charge recognize how close this situation is to becoming something much bigger than football mistakes on tape. Because once that line is crossed, the story won't be about what fans think anymore. It'll be about what everyone can finally see.